The Krell Dominion had stood for 12,000 years, their obsidian towers stretching across 40 star systems like monuments to immortality. Their bio-enhanced exoskeletons could withstand the heat of a dying sun, regenerate from molecular disruption, and adapt to any weapon within seconds of first contact. They were, by every measurable standard, indestructible. When humanity stumbled into their territory with primitive fusion drives and outdated kinetic weapons, the Krell laughed. When Earth's diplomats requested sovereignty over their small corner of space, the Krell responded with invasion. When humanity's standard arsenal failed to even scratch Krell armor, the galaxy watched humanity prepare to fall, as 200 species had fallen before them. The Krell had not accounted for human spite. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of Tokyo, watching Krell warriors march through streets that had stood for centuries. Her hands trembled not from fear but from exhaustion. She hadn't slept in 72 hours. Around her, what remained of Earth's scientific community worked in underground bunkers, jury-rigged laboratories, and abandoned subway tunnels. They adapt to energy weapons in 2.3 seconds, she muttered, staring at holographic readouts. Kinetic rounds in 1.7 seconds. Biological agents in 4.1 seconds. Thermal, chemical, electromagnetic. Everything we've got, they counter almost instantly. So we're finished, her assistant said quietly. Sarah's eyes narrowed. No, we're just thinking too small. The first weapon was born from desperation and dark humor. If the Krell could adapt to anything, humanity would build something so stupid, so fundamentally absurd, that adaptation would be meaningless. The resonance cannon didn't shoot bullets or beams. It fired precisely calibrated sound waves at frequencies that caused Krell bioarmor to vibrate itself apart from the inside. Not energy, not matter, just catastrophic resonance. The Krell adapted their armor to dampen sound within seconds, but by then, their internal organs had already liquefied. The second weapon came from an aerospace engineer who'd lost his family in Beijing. The gravity spike didn't fire at the Krell. It fired at space-time itself, creating localized gravitational anomalies that compressed Krell warriors into spheres of crushed matter. Before their adaptive biology could comprehend what was happening, the third emerged from a submarine designer in Mumbai. The quantum displacer didn't destroy Krell soldiers, it simply moved them. One moment a Krell stood on Earth. The next, their molecules existed simultaneously in Earth's atmosphere and the vacuum of space. Their bodies couldn't adapt to being in two places at once. The fourth weapon was built by a theoretical physicist in Sao Paulo, who remembered her grandmother's stories about old magic. The entropy accelerator aged Krell bioarmor 12,000 years in 3 seconds. Even adaptive regeneration couldn't outpace the heat death of their own molecular structure. By the time humanity unveiled the 10th weapon, a device so classified that even its creators couldn't fully explain how it worked, something involving folded dimensions and weaponized probability, the Krell had stopped laughing. Commander Throck of the Krell Dominion stood aboard his flagship, watching tactical displays flash with impossible data. His warriors, the finest soldiers in galactic history, were dying, not slowly, not heroically. They were being erased by weapons that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, violated every principle of warfare the Dominion had mastered over millennia. How? He roared at his science cast. How are these primitives doing this? The answer came from an intercepted human transmission, a broadcast that humanity sent to every species in the galaxy. You asked how we did it? We'll tell you. We didn't build one super weapon. We didn't find a weakness in your armor. We built 10 completely different ways to kill you, and we did it in 6 months. Because that's what humans do. We don't adapt to the universe. We make the universe adapt to us. The Krell withdrew from Earth after losing 30% of their invasion force. It was the first retreat in their 12,000-year history. The Galactic Council, which had watched humanity struggle with detached interest, suddenly found Earth's delegation treated with nervous respect. Other species studied the human weapons with a mixture of awe and terror. Some sought alliances. Others quietly fortified their borders. Sarah Chen stood before the United Nations Assembly, accepting humanity's highest honors, but she didn't smile. She remembered the cost, the cities burned, the billions dead, the childhood innocence of a species that had finally, irrevocably, learned to weaponize creativity itself. They said no gun could break them, she told the Assembly, her voice carrying across a devastated but defiant planet. They were right. No gun could. So we built 10 things that weren't guns, and when those stop working, we'll build 10 more. She paused, looking out at the representatives of a species that had stared into the abyss and built a ladder instead of jumping. Because that's the thing about humanity. We don't just survive. We iterate. We improvise. We engineer solutions to impossible problems with spite, coffee, and absolutely no regard for what the universe says is possible. The Krell thought they were unbreakable. They were, until they met the one species in the galaxy that treats impossible as a starting point rather than a conclusion. The assembly erupted in applause, but Sarah's mind was already elsewhere. In laboratories across Earth, new projects were beginning. The Krell would adapt. Other threats would emerge. But humanity had learned its most dangerous lesson. When you can't fight fair, you change the definition of fighting. And somewhere in the dark between stars, other species were beginning to understand what the Krell had learned too late. Humanity didn't need to be the strongest species in the galaxy. They just needed to be the most creative. And in a universe bound by physical laws, creativity was the ultimate weapon.